What about people that say they have a mining job without a license? Welcome to Australian Mining for New Starters. And recently there's been a lot of social media around asking if people can get jobs without a driver's license. And there's been some varying answers in the comments section, some of them good, some of them bad. So I just wanted to correct the record, so to speak, and give you a response so you know what the full information is. So I've already done a video on it, on why every production mining job ad asks for a manual license or above, so you can have a look at that one. But in this one I want to talk about why on some of these mine sites there's going to be people that don't have driver's license. So if we use the WA Mining Act and Regulations as an example, which is being copied in all the other jurisdictions around the country, so it's all something similar there set up, it comes down to the resident manager that's running the mine site. They have the final say on who gets to be on their mine site and under what conditions they accept them to work. The only caveat to that is if you've got a gazetted road running through the middle of your mine site, as soon as any of the vehicles over 15 tonnes hits the gazetted road, and a gazetted road is somewhere where the police can charge you with an offence, then everybody driving those bits of equipment needs a HR licence. That's the law. But while you're on the actual mine site proper, which is considered private property, and there's no gazetted roads running through there, technically you don't need a driver's license. You only need the resident manager's permission. Now that's where people get around stuff, and that's what people have trouble understanding, that it comes down to the resident manager's permission. Now, why is this important and why do you need to understand this? Is because if the resident manager, so if you've got a friend that's in charge and you don't have a driver's license and they give you a job and they make the exception for you, and you're there for 6 months or 12 months doing your thing, driving the underground truck or whatever, and then that person leaves and the new person comes in, then they have to accept the same responsibility as the previous resident manager, which means that if you do anything wrong and it's found out that you don't have a license, then the resident manager has to accept responsibility for anything that happens to that. Now, the new resident manager that comes in often doesn't want to accept that responsibility, so you no longer have a job. So that's the pitfalls of getting in without a license, is that you're coupled to the person that gave you the permission. And often you'll find that there are people that follow resident managers around that do good jobs, that have done, like lost their license permanently and stuff like that. So they literally are tethered to a person. But it's what I'm trying to communicate to everybody here is that it's down to the person in charge of the mine site to whether or not they employ somebody without a driver's license. Now, if they do employ somebody without a driver's license and they do all the paperwork and say that it's all good and something happens with that person, then the resident manager is the one standing in front of the magistrate, and they're the ones that have to take the consequences. If they had a driver's license and all that sort of stuff, then they wouldn't be standing in front of the magistrate and doing all that sort of stuff. It's because they've made an exception, they'll have to justify themselves. And that's what goes into it. You have to make an exception. Sometimes people are sneaking under the radar at the moment with shutdown work and some utility work around the place where middle management's looking the other way because they just physically need bums in seats. But once anybody towards the top finds out that you don't have a driver's license, that you're on a mine site and you're on a mine site proper, then you're not going to be there very long unless the resident manager knows about it. Now, one of the main reasons for that is if there's an emergency and you can't drive the emergency vehicle because it's geared, and or you don't know how to drive at all, then there's an issue. It just comes down to that. And when people come on and say, "Oh yeah, I got a job without a license, is easy, it's a piece of piss," you'll probably find that 99 times out of 100 they're related to one of the big bosses, or they know somebody. And like I said, when you do jump onto a mine site without a license, for all us mere mortals that don't know anybody and they're just trying to make our way in the world, it's not going to, it's not going to happen. People just aren't going to hire you. You need a manual car license to get a production mining job these days. There's no way around it. Auto's not good enough because all the vehicles that go down into the pits, all the light vehicles into the pits in the underground, they all have to be geared because they don't want runaways with automatics, because they've had that happen in the past. So everything's got to be geared, especially in the underground space. And you only have 3 gears to play with, but you have to be able to use a manual. And because a lot of the emergency vehicles are light vehicles, they all have to be geared, and that's where it all comes from. You can get special permission to use automatic vehicles underground and all that sort of stuff, but you need to go to the mines department, get special permission and all that sort of stuff. And then again, if something goes wrong, whoever asked for that special permission to use the different vehicle has to justify themselves with, when it went wrong. And, when you find yourself having to justify yourself when you've made a different decision than what's the common norm, normally that's when you get thrown under the bus. And so that's why all the job ads ask for manual car licenses. And, everybody that's telling you on social media, yeah, you can get a job without a manual license or without a driver's license at all, they're just, they know people, and it's not the common reality or the common experience that a new starter would have trying to get into the industry. So I just wanted to clear that up for people, because there's been a lot around about that. If you want to see where the jobs are for the entry level for underground, we load up all the jobs on our mining jobs to apply for page that we think you should be applying for once you've done the training. You're going to need a manual car license for all of those. And the other thing that happens too is that if you don't have a manual car license, a lot of the employers, their resume systems that they run through the computer, I'm not an expert on this. We're going to have a talk to somebody next week that is an expert on this when we start our new chat show that we're going to do. From my experience, if you don't have a manual driver's license, your resume gets culled straight away. So that's the first port of call, getting yourself a manual driver's license so they know you can drive one of these things. Like I said, you've only got 3 gears to play with, underground and reverse. It's not complicated, but you just need that manual license. So I hope that answers your question. And remember, a lot of people that are answering questions on social media, a lot of them don't have a lot of experience. What are you doing on an entry-level mining page answering questions? That's always what I want to know. And a lot of people want to be miners, and it's just bad information, or it's mates of mates. And some people are just trolls. They're just deliberately giving out the wrong information to send people in the wrong direction because they think it's funny. It's pathetic. But if you want to know how it all works, then have a look through this page. It's got all the information in there. We've got heaps of videos that you can watch on how it all works and what's going on, and the day in the life of a nipper and the day in the life of a truck operator. All that sort of stuff's there. You can have a look. So I hope you found that information helpful, and if you've got any questions that you want answered, please send them through. And you definitely need a driver's license unless you know somebody. If you're a mere mortal like myself, you'll definitely need a manual driver's license if you want to get that production mining job. So if you could share this information around and like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks.